The most feared man in Europe, undefeated for over a decade, master of warfare, emperor of France. Then everything fell apart. Napoleon Bonaparte went from ruling most of Europe to dying alone on a remote island. How does that happen? This isn't the story of one battle, this is the story of how the world's greatest military mind destroyed himself. Step by step, mistake by mistake. Today we're breaking down exactly how Napoleon got defeated. June 1812. Napoleon marches into Russia with 600,000 men, the largest army ever assembled. 6 months later, fewer than 30,000 make it back alive. What went wrong? Everything. First, the Russians refused to fight. They burned their own cities and retreated deeper into their country. Napoleon's army chased ghosts across an endless wasteland. Then winter hit, not just any winter, one of the coldest in recorded history. Soldiers froze to death while marching. Horses died by the thousands. Supply lines collapsed completely. Disease spread through the ranks. Typhus, dysentery, starvation. The Grande Armée became a walking graveyard. Napoleon abandoned his men and raced back to Paris. Behind him, the greatest military force in history simply disintegrated. Russia broke Napoleon's myth of invincibility, and once that myth died, everyone wanted a piece of him. Europe had been terrified of Napoleon for years. Now they smelled blood. Britain, Austria, Prussia, Russia, they all united against him. But this time they had a plan. It was called the Trachenberg Plan. Avoid Napoleon directly, attack his generals instead, stretch his forces thin. For the first time, Napoleon's enemies were fighting smart instead of fighting brave. October 1813, the Battle of Leipzig, also called the Battle of Nations. Napoleon faces 380,000 enemy troops with only 190,000 of his own. He's outnumbered 2 to 1. For 3 days, he fights like the old Napoleon, but the odds are impossible. His army breaks, his allies desert him, his empire crumbles in 72 hours. Napoleon abdicates and gets exiled to Elba. The emperor of Europe becomes the ruler of a tiny island. Game over, or so everyone thought. March 1815. A ship lands on the French coast. One man steps off. Napoleon. He's supposed to be safely locked away on Elba. Instead, he's back in France with nothing but audacity and charisma. The French army is sent to arrest him. But when they see their former emperor, something incredible happens. They join him. In just 100 days, Napoleon retakes France without firing a shot. The other European powers panic. Their worst nightmare is back. But this time, they're ready for him, and this time Napoleon makes his final fatal mistake. June 18, 1815, near a small Belgian town called Waterloo. Napoleon faces the Duke of Wellington and 68,000 troops. But Napoleon has 72,000 men. He should win this. Then it starts raining. The storm turns the battlefield into a mud pit. Napoleon's artillery can't move, his cavalry gets stuck. Wellington picks the perfect defensive position on a ridge. Napoleon has to attack uphill through mud. The battle should have started at dawn. Instead, Napoleon waits for the ground to dry. That delay costs him everything. The French attack wave after wave. British lines bend but don't break. Wellington's soldiers form squares, human fortresses that cavalry can't penetrate. For hours, it's a stalemate. Napoleon's men are brave, but Wellington's defense is perfect. British casualties mount, French casualties mount. Both armies are bleeding to death. But Wellington knows something Napoleon doesn't. Help is coming. Late afternoon, Napoleon thinks he's winning. Then his scouts bring terrible news. Prussian reinforcements are marching toward the battlefield. 70,000 fresh Prussian troops under Marshal Blucher. They're hitting Napoleon's right flank. Suddenly, Napoleon is fighting 2 armies at once. His advantage disappears. The trap is closing. Napoleon plays his last card, the Imperial Guard, his elite troops who have never been defeated. They march up the hill toward Wellington's lines. If anyone can break through, it's them. British guns open fire. The Imperial Guard, Napoleon's invincible veterans, breaks and runs. When the army sees the Guard retreating, panic spreads like wildfire. The Guard dies, it does not surrender. But this time, they did neither. They ran. Napoleon's army collapses. The Emperor flees the battlefield. His empire dies at Waterloo. 4 days after Waterloo, Napoleon abdicates again. This time, there's no comeback. The British capture him and ship him to St. Helena, a tiny island in the middle of the South Atlantic. No escape this time. No friendly armies, no loyal marshals. Just 6 years of exile until his death. The man who once controlled Europe dies as a prisoner on a rock 1,200 miles from anywhere. His final words, France, army, head of the army, Josephine. Even at the end, he was still the emperor in his mind. So what really defeated Napoleon? It wasn't one thing, it was everything hitting at once. Russia taught Europe that Napoleon could be beaten. His army wasn't invincible, his strategies had weaknesses. The coalition learned to fight smarter, not harder. They stopped trying to out-general Napoleon and started wearing him down. Weather and terrain turned against him. The Russian winter, the Waterloo mud. Nature became his enemy. But the biggest factor? Napoleon's own ego. He invaded Russia because he couldn't accept that any country would defy him. He returned from Elba because he couldn't accept being forgotten. His greatest strength, his unshakable confidence, became his greatest weakness. The man who said, "I make my own luck," discovered that luck eventually runs out. Napoleon was brilliant, a military genius, a political mastermind. But even the greatest leaders fall when they fight the whole world at once. The lesson? Success can blind you to danger. Winning can make you reckless. And no one, no matter how powerful, is bigger than the forces of nature and human unity. What do you think really defeated Napoleon? His mistakes? Bad luck? Or was his downfall inevitable? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want more stories of how history's most powerful figures met their end, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every empire falls, every emperor dies, the only question is how.